we're going to make the pockets for our machine sewn skirt. Now we're going to place our fabric down right sides together on top of our placement stitches. And proceed with our next step. Now that we are finished with the first step to the pockets, we can remove them from the hoop. Now we're going to take our pockets and we're going to trim all the way around, leaving about 1/4 inch. Next, we will open our pocket and turn it right side out. Take anything long and pointy, but not your scissors, and straighten out the seams and poke out those corners at the top. Once you've got one completed, move on to the second. You want to take the top of the pocket and fold it in. Where you've got a straight edge right across the top, and iron it flat. Do the same thing with the second one. Now we're going to take 2 small pieces of hem tape and place it right inside the pocket. So we can seal it shut. Do the same thing with the second pocket. and they're ready to be sewn on. I didn't bother rehooping some stabilizer. I just took a piece of scrap stabilizer and placed on the back. Now that we have the second part of the pocket loaded into our machine, let's stitch out the placement stitch. This is where I differ from the pattern a little bit. Because I'm going to be machine sewing this later, I folded a 1/4 of an inch seam at the bottom and about 3/4 of an inch seam at the top. We're going to line the bottom edge up with this line right here, and we're going to fold this in half. See where I've got it pressed right here? We're going to line that up with the center line. Now that I have it lined up, I can continue with the pocket placement stitches. I'm going to trim the jump stitch. And then I will place my pockets down on top of the placement stitches. Here's our skirt panel with our pockets attached. I'm now going to fold this in half and sew up the short side. I'm going to sew with a straight stitch all the way down the short edge. Now I'm going to zigzag stitch over this raw edge. Now I'm going to zigzag stitch all the way around the top of the skirt and the bottom of the skirt. Make sure that your seam is going the same way on the top and the bottom. If you notice on this side it's going down, so I'm going to make sure on this side it's going down. Now I went ahead and turned this right side out, and I pinned in the back where I do not want to stitch so I can put my elastic through. So stitching the top edge, I'm going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch from this edge. And now since I want a ruffle on the top, I'm going to sew about 1/4 of an inch above this stitch line. Now we have 2 lines of stitching at the top where I'm going to feed an elastic band through here. Let's move on to the ruffle. I've got the ruffle pretty sides of the fabric facing each other, and I'm going to stitch down the short edge. Now I'm going to zigzag stitch all of the raw edges. I went over to my iron and I ironed this down about 1/8 of an inch just to give a nice crease and so I'd know where to stitch. I want to place my needle where my stitches are going to go right inside of the white stitch line that I already have. Now that we've finished sewing the bottom edge of our ruffle, we're going to sew 2 sets of gathering stitches at the top edge. I'm going to sew my first one at 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to put my length of the stitches to 5. Remember not to cut your thread. Just lift your needle, lift your presser foot, and cut your thread on the side. Pull a tail of thread and push it to the back. Now you can sew your next line of stitching. My next line of stitching is going to go just under 1/4 of an inch. The first thing that I'm going to do when adding the ruffle to my skirt is to flip it to the back side where the seam is. I'm going to line this seam up with the seam on my ruffle, having the skirt right side out and having the ruffle right side down. So they're right sides together. Go ahead and line your seams up and place a pin. Now we're going to go to the front side of our skirt where we've previously pressed a seam. We're going to line up the center, see where my seam is pressed? Center of the ruffle with the center of the skirt. Now we will find the center of the sides. There's one. And there's the center of the ruffle. And we're going to line those up and put a pin. We're going to do the same thing with the other side. Find the center of your skirt and the center of your ruffle. And you're going to line those two up. Now we're going to flip it back over to the back and we're going to grab two of the strings, making sure they're coming both from one side where the stitches go this way or this way. You want both of the threads going one direction and you only want it from one side, either this side or the other. And you're going to pull. This is going to allow you to gather your fabric pretty easily. Now we're going to even out our ruffles and place a pin. Now we will do the other side. Now we can stitch down our ruffle. This is our skirt now. I'm going to pull the ruffle down and top stitch along this bottom edge. It's easier for me to do it inside out. Start at the center back seam so you can hide your back stitches. Now the bottom edge of our skirt is completed. There are a few stitches that are visible from our gathering stitches. We can seam rip those right out of there pretty quickly. But first, I'm going to install our elastic. I'm going to use some of this ultra thin beading cord that I got at Hobby Lobby. It was only $1.79. I'm going to get me a safety pin, just a small one. I'm going to thread through the hole of the safety pin and make a knot. I'm not cutting this cord yet. Now I'm going to enter it in one side, and I'm going to put it in between the two layers of stitching and work it all the way around. I'm going to take the safety pin off, and I'm going to line up this cording just about where it should be when it goes through. I'm going to drop my length down to 1 millimeter, and I'm going to go back and forth over the top of the elastic. That way I can lock it into place. I'm going to pull the other side of the elastic. And I've already marked the elastic. I previously marked the elastic where it would go around her waist, about right here. Now I will take that elastic where the mark is, and I will tuck it up into the fold of the fabric, real close to where I have already stitched the other side of the elastic down. Now I will trim the elastic. And I will sew up this gap. And the skirt is now complete. All we have to do now is trim all the excess threads. We have now completed the Darling Doll by Planet Applique. I absolutely adore her. She's so simple to make. There are a few things that I would do differently. If I was to make her again, I would not add the white cotton behind the felt on the shoes. If you can tell, I had to cut really close and it might fray over time. I might modify the pattern next time and do a satin stitch over the edge of the shoes. That way I can use cotton. When I was making the skirt, I realized that the placement stitch for the pockets was actually outside of where the pockets should go. If I was to do this again, I'll just stitch these on the regular sewing machine. Other than that, these are so cute, and I will be making this skirt a whole bunch more so my daughter can have different skirts to put on her. Thank you for joining me today and making the Darling Doll by Planet Applique. Until next time, have an absolutely blessed week.